Yo le hubiera dicho,
They should have called the police first instead of just shooting.
It shouldn't have happened, you know. Don't shoot first, ask questions later.
I talked to the prosecutor today when he conceded he has a difficult decision to make. He's weighing whether that homeowner was reasonable in using deadly force, believing the cleaner could have been an intruder.
Take a look at the woman in this video. She wasn't a threat. She wasn't breaking in. She was there to clean a house, but she went to the wrong address. Inside that house, a woman pulled the trigger. She says she was scared, but the woman outside never said a word. So here's the question every American is asking tonight. Was it fear? Because in a country where knocking on the wrong door can cost your life, who really gets to claim they were afraid? This is not just a story about one shot. It's about what America chooses to call justice. Welcome to True Crime Story Videos. Every face you'll see here once had dreams, laughter, and people who loved them, but somewhere along the way their stories went silent. I'm Detective Daniel, and here we give those stories a voice again. Before we begin, take a moment, tell me your name and where you're watching from. Take a good look at the man in this video. His name is Maria's husband. Together, he and his wife Maria Florinda Rios Perez de Velásquez made a living cleaning homes across Indiana. They weren't rich, and they didn't ask for much, just enough to keep their children fed, their rent paid, and their dream alive. Every morning, they packed their tools and drove to another address, another home to make spotless. To them, every door was just a job, until one morning, one door became the end of everything. That morning felt no different. The air was cool. The car was filled with the sound of Spanish music and soft laughter. They double-checked the address. Then they drove to the house. They parked. He got out first. Then Maria followed, holding the keys for the cleaning job they'd been hired to do. She didn't kick the door. She didn't break in. She simply tried the key, believing she was at the right house, but she wasn't. And that mistake, one that could happen to anyone, was the mistake that cost her life.
New reporting on the deadly shooting of a house cleaner in Indiana. The wife and mother of four shot through the front door when she mistakenly went to the wrong home.
In that moment, Maria stood at a door that wasn't hers, and behind it, someone who thought pulling a trigger was safer than asking a question. What made that homeowner so afraid of a woman holding cleaning keys? They parked outside a two-story house in Whitestown. The numbers matched the address they'd been given. They circled the block twice to be sure. Nothing seemed wrong. Maria took the keys, walked up the porch and tried to open the door, just as she had done hundreds of times before. Her husband stood a few feet away, checking the window, waiting for her to find the right key. In 1 second, everything changed. A shot rang out from behind the door. He ran to her, catching her before she hit the ground. Later, through tears, he told reporters he couldn't understand why she wasn't warned, why no one called for help first. He said he never imagined that morning would be their last drive together. Detectives confirmed Maria never entered the house. She never forced the door, yet a single pull of the trigger ended her life. So the question remains, what made the woman inside believe she had to shoot? In Whitestown, this doesn't happen here, but it did, and it happened fast. The community woke up to headlines they couldn't believe. A mother of four shot through a door at the wrong address. For neighbors, it wasn't just news. It was guilt, fear, and questions they couldn't shake. They asked, how could this happen in our town? How could fear turn a doorknob into a death sentence? In the days that followed, reporters stood outside the same house, the white porch still wrapped in yellow tape. Police cars came and went, and the man who had held his wife in his arms stood alone watching. The shooter told investigators she was terrified.
I'm scared. Someone is knocking on the door. I'd like them to go away. I'm just gonna, I picked up the gun and I accidentally shot the gun. There's a Susan somewhere in the world like that. You've somehow found a spot in the middle where you're trying to explain this, but it doesn't actually make any sense. That within 2 minutes, because we know it's 2 minutes, within 2 minutes, this person came over and they were able to put down a series of statements, such as, and you said this, that they came right up to and they want to have a discussion with the way that you were treating their kids that day. You said that they were able to make that sentence. I want to talk to you about the kids. I'm banging on the door. I want to talk to you about the kids. They're making statements like that. We've interviewed other people that it was a very brief interaction, and then you shot them. Now, this wasn't a long siege. It wasn't a castle siege. It didn't last for 20, 30 minutes. It was 2 minutes. So you're trying to tell us that a reasonable person would shoot somebody for less than 2 minutes of making statements outside. That doesn't make any sense. So that I have to look on the scale here. Where is Susan? Did she plan this? Is she a cold-blooded killer that plans things? Was this an accident? Or was this something that got out of hand? Is it somewhere in the middle? That makes more sense, not what Susan's telling.
There was no forced entry, no threat. In a state with stand-your-ground laws, fear can be a defense. But fear of what? And of whom? One life ended with a single shot. But the echoes of that moment, the questions, the anger, the silence, are only just beginning. Detectives said there was no forced entry. The door was locked. The bullet came from inside the house, straight through the wood, into the woman standing outside. From the very first hour, investigators knew this wasn't a home invasion. There were no footprints leading in, no broken glass, no pry marks, just one round fired from behind a closed door. Detectives began comparing statements, timing the 911 calls, checking security cameras on nearby houses. Everything pointed to the same truth. Maria never stepped inside. In Indiana, there's a law called the Castle Doctrine. It lets homeowners use deadly force if they truly believe someone is breaking in or threatening their life. It's meant to protect families from danger. But Maria wasn't breaking in. She was cleaning. A mother, holding a ring of work keys, mistaken for a threat. So how far does fear go before it becomes a crime? The coroner ruled the death a homicide, meaning one person's act caused another's death. But homicide doesn't always mean murder. It doesn't always mean charges. Months later, no one was arrested, no charges were filed, and a family still waits for answers. The evidence is clear, the laws are written, but in this case justice isn't. The investigation reached its most fragile point, the moment when the shooter had to explain why she pulled the trigger. Detectives say she told them she was terrified. She thought someone was breaking in. She said she fired before she even realized what was happening. But Maria never forced the door. She never spoke, never shouted, never moved inside the house. The only sound before the gunshot was the rattle of keys. For investigators, that detail changed everything. A closed door, a shot fired through solid wood, no warning, no words exchanged. The question became, what exactly did she see? What turned a cleaning worker into a perceived threat? Psychologists who reviewed similar cases call it perceived danger reflex, the split-second panic when fear overrides fact. It happens in dark rooms, late at night, when someone believes danger is already there. But fear isn't proof. Maria's family was told the bullet traveled straight through the door and struck her at close range. She could have been warned. She could have been injured, stopped, spared. Instead, her husband was left holding her, whispering her name while sirens closed in. 4 children now wake each morning asking why mom isn't home. Inside that room, the homeowner insisted she was afraid for her life, afraid of the unknown person on her porch, afraid of what might happen if she waited. But fear can be taught. Fear can be shaped by headlines, by bias, by the stories we tell ourselves about who belongs and who doesn't. In Indiana, investigators must weigh that fear against the facts. Under the Castle Doctrine, a homeowner can use deadly force if they reasonably believe someone intends harm. Reasonably. That word decides everything. Was it reasonable to fire through a door at a woman holding keys and cleaning supplies? Or was it something else, a reaction rooted deeper than fear? Across the country, similar stories echo. Delivery drivers, teens, strangers who knocked on the wrong door. Each time the same defense. I was scared. Each time another family left asking how fear became an excuse. Maria's husband now speaks of justice, not anger. He asks why a mother with cleaning keys could be mistaken for a threat, why her life ended before her name was even known. For prosecutors, the case sits in the gray space between law and conscience. Was the shooter reckless or simply terrified? Did the system teach her to protect herself or to expect the worst from a stranger? The coroner ruled the death a homicide, yet weeks later no one was charged. The files were passed from detectives to the county prosecutor, who must decide if fear outweighs a life. On paper, the law is clear. In reality, it's complicated. So we're left with the question that splits this town in two. Was it fear or prejudice? And will the law see the difference?
The story of Maria Florinda Rios Perez de Velásquez no longer belongs to Whitestown alone. It's being argued in living rooms, on talk shows, across timelines. Every post, every headline asks the same question: was it a mistake or a pattern? Some call it a tragic accident, a split second of panic that could happen to anyone. Others say it's something deeper, a reflex born from bias, shaped by what people are taught to fear. For her family, there's no debate. They lost a wife, a mother, a partner who only wanted to work. To them, this isn't politics, it's grief. Across the state, lawyers study the case file. Some see a clear violation of law. Others see a legal shield, the Castle Doctrine, broad enough to protect anyone who claims they were afraid. If a homeowner honestly believes they're in danger, even if they're wrong, the law often protects that reaction. But whose fear counts as reasonable? When a person of color is on the other side of that door, the outcome looks painfully familiar. In cities across America, small vigils mirror the one in Whitestown. People gather with candles and questions, saying Maria's story feels too close to others they've seen before. In Kansas City, in upstate New York, in Alabama, each headline different, each reason the same. I thought they were breaking in. I was scared. I didn't know. Fear has become the language of defense, but for the families left behind, it sounds like an excuse. He speaks softly now, often in the present tense, as if she's still beside him. He says she wasn't a threat, she was working, trying to find the right key. In his eyes, justice isn't about revenge, it's about recognition, about the world seeing that her life mattered. Meanwhile, prosecutors face the question that could set precedent for years to come. When does fear stop being protection and start becoming negligence? How much danger must exist before a trigger pull is justified? The answer sits in the gap between empathy and accountability. If charges are filed, they'll argue intent, reaction time, the limits of reason. If they're not, the message will be that fear alone can end a life. But online, the debate doesn't stop. Some defend the shooter, saying anyone could panic. Others ask why panic so often targets people who look like Maria. Experts warn that cases like this test more than state law. They test what Americans believe about safety, equality, and the cost of a single mistake. In one home, a mother's laughter is gone. In another, a woman lives with the weight of a bullet she can't take back. 2 lives changed forever. 2 families divided by 1 locked door and 1 moment of fear. 2 families, 1 bullet. But whose story will justice believe? The investigation slows, the cameras leave, but the questions don't. Why didn't she call 911 first? Why fire through a door? What happens when fear replaces reason? Across the country, the pattern repeats. Different names, different cities, the same story. A knock mistaken for danger, a movement mistaken for threat, a life mistaken for something less than human. These aren't just isolated fears. They're echoes of a nation on edge, where safety and suspicion live side by side. Maria's death isn't only a headline or a hashtag. It's a mirror held up to America's fear, its laws, and its silence. When doors stay locked and hearts close tighter, the distance between caution and tragedy becomes a single heartbeat. In the end, this story leaves us with more questions than answers. Questions about judgment, about empathy, about what it really means to be afraid. Maria Florinda Rios Perez de Velásquez lost her life to a mistake, one rooted in fear, and until fear stops looking like reason, her story will keep echoing behind every closed door. Maria Florinda Rios Perez de Velásquez, a mother, a worker, a daughter. Her only mistake was the wrong address. In the days after her death, people from across the country sent prayers, flowers, and messages of outrage. They said her story felt too familiar, another life lost to fear. The case remains under review. No verdict, no closure, just a family learning to live with the echo of one gunshot that will never fade. If you believe her story deserves justice, share it, subscribe, comment where you're watching from. Because silence in cases like this is louder than words.